Bullies attack black girl until she calls her father, most lethal Green Beret sniper ever. A story by Heartfelt Tales. Maya Williams clutched her backpack straps so tightly her knuckles had turned white. The hallway of Jefferson High stretched before her like a gauntlet, filled with the familiar faces that had made her life a living nightmare for the past 3 months. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she spotted them near her locker, the same group that had cornered her yesterday, the day before, and countless days before that. But today felt different. Today, something inside her was breaking, and she didn't know how much more she could take. If you're moved by stories of courage, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between family, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, comment below with your thoughts, and subscribe to Heartfelt Tales for more inspiring stories that touch the soul. The leader of the group, Jessica Martinez, had made it her personal mission to destroy Maya's spirit. It started small, whispered comments about Maya's hair, her clothes, the way she spoke. But it had escalated into something far more sinister. Jessica and her followers had created fake social media accounts to spread rumors about Maya, posted embarrassing photos they'd secretly taken, and turned what should have been Maya's safe space, school, into a battlefield where she was always outnumbered and always losing. Maya's mother had died in a car accident 2 years ago, leaving her alone with her father, Marcus Williams. Marcus was a man of few words, someone who showed love through actions rather than lengthy conversations. He worked long hours at the VA hospital, helping other veterans transition back to civilian life, and Maya had never wanted to burden him with her problems. He was already carrying so much weight on his shoulders, dealing with his own grief while trying to be both mother and father to his daughter. What Maya didn't know about her father was that before he became a counselor, before he dedicated his life to healing others, Marcus Williams had been one of the most decorated snipers in Green Beret history. He had served 3 tours in Afghanistan, where his precision and tactical brilliance had saved countless American lives. His fellow soldiers called him Ghost, because he could disappear into any landscape and emerge exactly where he needed to be. But Marcus had left that life behind, choosing instead to build rather than destroy, to heal rather than harm. The morning that would change everything started like any other. Maya forced herself to eat breakfast while her father read the newspaper, both of them sitting in comfortable silence. Marcus glanced up at his daughter and noticed the dark circles under her eyes, the way she seemed to shrink into herself. "You okay, baby girl?" he asked, using the nickname he'd called her since she was small. Maya forced a smile. "Just tired, Dad. Big test today." Marcus studied her face for a moment longer, his trained eye catching details others might miss, the slight tremor in her hands, the way she avoided eye contact, the defensive posture of her shoulders. He'd seen these signs before in soldiers suffering from persistent stress, but he didn't want to push. Maya had always been independent, and he respected that about her. At school, Maya made it through her morning classes without incident, but lunch was always the worst part of her day. The cafeteria was Jessica's domain, where she held court with her followers and orchestrated her cruelest moments. Maya usually tried to eat quickly and leave, but today Jessica had other plans. "Look what we have here," Jessica announced loudly as Maya sat down at an empty table in the corner. "The little princess thinks she can just ignore us." Maya kept her eyes down, focusing on her sandwich, but her appetite had completely disappeared. She could feel the stares of other students, some sympathetic, others eager for drama, but none willing to intervene. "I'm talking to you," Jessica said, her voice rising. She walked over to Maya's table with her 3 closest followers flanking her like bodyguards. "You think you're better than us because your daddy works at the hospital? News flash, Nobody cares about your dead mama anymore." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. She looked up, tears threatening to spill over. "Please, just leave me alone." "Oh," she speaks. Jessica laughed, and her followers joined in. "Tell me, Maya, how does it feel knowing your mom died because she was probably trying to get away from you? I bet she couldn't stand having such a pathetic daughter." Something snapped inside Maya. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Don't you dare talk about my mother." "Or what?" Jessica stepped closer, close enough that Maya could smell her perfume. "What are you going to do about it? Cry to your daddy?" "Oh wait, he's probably too busy dealing with all his crazy veteran friends to care about his loser daughter." Maya's vision blurred with tears and rage. In that moment, surrounded by hostile faces and cruel laughter, she felt more alone than she had since her mother's funeral. Without thinking, she pulled out her phone and called the one person she knew would always answer. "Maya? Shouldn't you be in class?" Marcus's voice was warm and concerned. "Dad," Maya whispered, her voice breaking. "I need you." The change in Marcus was instantaneous. Every fatherly instinct, every protective impulse, every skill he'd learned in the most dangerous places on earth suddenly focused on his daughter's voice. He could hear fear, pain, and desperation in those three simple words. "Where are you?" His voice was calm but carried an undertone that made his coworkers look up from their desks. "School cafeteria." "Dad, I can't. I don't know what to do anymore." "Stay exactly where you are. I'm coming." Marcus Williams had faced down enemy snipers, navigated through hostile territory, and made life-or-death decisions in split seconds. But nothing had ever motivated him like the sound of his daughter's broken voice. He told his supervisor he had a family emergency and left the VA hospital, his mind already shifting into the tactical mode he thought he'd left behind forever. The drive to Jefferson High took 12 minutes. Marcus used every second to plan his approach. He wouldn't storm in like an angry parent. That would only embarrass Maya more and potentially make things worse. Instead, he would gather intelligence, assess the situation, and neutralize the threat to his daughter's well-being with the same precision he'd once used to protect his fellow soldiers. Maya stood by the cafeteria entrance, having been escorted there by a sympathetic teacher who'd witnessed the tail end of the confrontation. Jessica and her group had been sent to the principal's office, but Maya knew this was far from over. If anything, getting them in trouble would only make things worse. When Marcus walked through the school doors, several things happened simultaneously. The receptionist looked up to greet him and found herself momentarily speechless. There was something about the way this man moved, purposeful, aware, commanding, that suggested he was not someone to be underestimated. His eyes swept the hallway in a pattern that took in every entrance, every potential threat, every detail that might be relevant to his daughter's safety. Maya saw him first and ran into his arms. Marcus held her tightly, feeling her shoulders shake with suppressed sobs. In that moment, every medal he'd earned, every commendation he'd received, every life he'd saved meant nothing compared to the fact that his daughter was hurting and he hadn't known. "Tell me what happened," he said quietly. Through tears and stuttering words, Maya explained everything. The months of harassment, the social media attacks, the isolation, the cruel words about her mother. Marcus listened without interruption, his jaw tightening with each detail, his mind cataloging each offense like a military briefing. Principal Harrison approached them cautiously. He'd been a principal for 15 years and had dealt with countless angry parents, but something about Marcus Williams commanded immediate respect. "Mr. Williams? I'm Principal Harrison. I think we need to talk." The meeting in the principal's office was unlike anything Harrison had experienced. Marcus didn't shout or make threats. Instead, he spoke with quiet authority, laying out exactly what had been happening to his daughter and what he expected to be done about it. He had documentation, Maya's declining grades, screenshots of the social media harassment that he discovered on her phone, even witness statements from other students who'd been afraid to speak up. "Mr. Williams," the principal began, "I understand you're upset, but teenage conflicts are complicated." "Principal Harrison," Marcus interrupted, his voice still calm but carrying an edge that made everyone in the room pay attention. "This isn't a teenage conflict. This is systematic harassment and bullying that has gone unchecked in your school. My daughter has been targeted, isolated, and psychologically tortured for months while your staff looked the other way." Jessica and her followers sat in chairs across from Maya and Marcus, their earlier bravado completely gone. There was something about Maya's father that made them suddenly realize they weren't dealing with a typical parent who could be manipulated or dismissed. "Now," Marcus continued, "here's what's going to happen. These students are going to apologize to my daughter, not because I'm forcing them to, but because they're going to understand exactly what their actions have caused. Then we're going to discuss a plan to ensure this never happens again." What followed was unlike any disciplinary meeting in Jefferson High's history. Marcus didn't lecture or threaten. Instead, he spoke to Jessica and her followers like the counselor he'd become, helping them understand the real consequences of their actions. He talked about Maya's mother, about grief, about how cruelty often comes from our own pain but can never be justified by it. By the end of the meeting, Jessica was crying. Not the manipulative tears she'd used to get out of trouble before, but genuine tears of shame and regret. She looked at Maya and whispered, "I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry." But Marcus wasn't finished. Over the next several weeks, he became a quiet but persistent presence at Jefferson High. He volunteered to speak to classes about bullying, drew on his military experience to talk about leadership and courage, and somehow managed to transform the school's entire culture around harassment and inclusion. Maya watched her father work with amazement. She'd always known he was special, but she'd never understood the depth of his capabilities. This was a man who could have used his skills to intimidate or destroy, but instead chose to build, to heal, to create something better. The transformation wasn't instant. Maya still had difficult days, moments when the memory of those months of harassment would surface. But she was no longer alone. More importantly, she had learned something powerful about herself and about the love that had always surrounded her. 6 months later, Maya stood at the podium in the Jefferson High auditorium, addressing the entire school at an anti-bullying assembly. She spoke about her experience, about the darkness she'd felt, and about the moment she realized she didn't have to face it alone. "My father taught me that real strength isn't about being the loudest or the cruelest," she said, her voice clear and confident. "Real strength is about standing up for people who can't stand up for themselves. It's about choosing to build instead of destroy, to heal instead of harm." In the audience, Marcus Williams watched his daughter with pride. She had found her voice, her confidence, her purpose. The girl who had once felt powerless now radiated strength, not because she had learned to fight back with cruelty, but because she had learned to fight back with courage, compassion, and truth. Jessica Martinez sat in the third row, listening to Maya's words. She had spent the past months in counseling, learning to understand the pain that had driven her to hurt others. She was still working to rebuild relationships and trust, but she was trying. After the assembly, she approached Maya. "Thank you," she said simply, "for giving me a chance to be better. Maya smiled, and in that smile was forgiveness, hope, and the kind of strength that can only come from choosing love over hate, healing over revenge. As the family drove home that evening, Maya looked at her father. "Dad, why didn't you ever tell me about your military service? About what you did?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Because that's not who I am anymore, baby girl. I was a soldier when the world needed me to be a soldier. Now I'm a father when you need me to be a father. We become what the people we love need us to be. But you could have scared them, made them stop immediately." "Fear is a poor teacher," Marcus replied. "I wanted them to stop hurting you because they understood it was wrong, not because they were afraid of me. That's the only way real change happens." Maya understood then that her father's greatest strength had never been his ability to eliminate threats from a distance. His greatest strength was his ability to see the humanity in everyone, to choose compassion over conquest, to build bridges instead of walls. The Williams family had faced their darkest challenge and emerged stronger, not because they had destroyed their enemies, but because they had transformed them into allies. Maya had learned that she never had to face her battles alone, and Marcus had learned that sometimes the most important mission is simply being present for the people you love. In the end, the most lethal weapon Marcus Williams possessed wasn't his sniper training or his tactical expertise. It was his unwavering love for his daughter and his commitment to making the world a safer, kinder place for her to grow up in. That was a power that no amount of military training could teach, and no enemy could ever defeat. If this story touched your heart and reminded you of the power of love, courage, and standing up for what's right, please show your support by liking this video, sharing it with others who need to hear this message, leaving a comment about your own experiences or thoughts, and subscribing to Heartfelt Tales for more stories that celebrate the strength of the human spirit. Your engagement helps us continue sharing these important messages of hope and resilience. ****.